Are Premier League teams overhyped and overrated? And are we doing this every single year, especially around the Champions League time? Now, first of all, if you're watching this video, thank you so much for being here. From the bottom of my heart, I truly appreciate it. If you could leave a like and subscribe as well, that would just be the cherry on top. But again, you just being here is the best, so thank you so much for being a part of the discussion. Second of all, that means you're here also because you are just as curious as I am when it comes to this conversation. This is a topic of discussion around football every single year. And that's the fluidity and the honest situation that's happening every single year because it does change every single year. But at the same time, there are staples that are in our sport that I believe is pretty much a foundation of what we're looking at and why we get confused as a whole every single year. And I want to discuss it specifically when it comes to the Prem, Ligue 1, and La Liga. Those three in particular are what I'm going to talk about in today's subject, just because of the fact of how round of 16 has happened over the last couple of days and last 2 weeks. Now, when it comes to the Prem, I believe it's the nucleus of football. What I mean by that is the top 6 teams in the Prem usually are something that we always talk about and are just consistently very, very competitive in the Prem. And just in general, the Prem is a very competitive league. I think it's the most competitive league. We've seen a bunch of teams make it to the top year after year, and it's always interchanging because of how good a lot of these different Prem teams are. But at the same time, I don't believe they host the top pinnacle peak of football teams and football clubs around the world. I believe the two clubs that consistently do it year after year, sometimes they're one's above the other one, but every single year, Madrid, Real Madrid, and Barcelona. And that comes from Spain's La Liga. Now, don't get me wrong. Again, I'm not saying that the Chelsea teams, the Liverpool teams, the Man U squads, I'm not saying that they don't have a place in peak of football, but year after year, you're witnessing Madrid and Barca be the peak and pinnacle of talent, and the thrones, the people have to try to take them down every single year. Every single year it happens. Now, with that being said, right, this is how I view it. Atletico Madrid, Villarreal, Sevilla, those teams are always in the mix as well. So you can look at it almost like a top 6 as well. But overall, La Liga is really dominated by Barca and Madrid. So of course, from a league standpoint, I believe the Prem is the greatest. And that's why I call it the nucleus of football. But every single year, we're witnessing when it comes to especially Real Madrid, if you look at who wins year after year, 15 UCL titles for Madrid alone, that kind of defeats the purpose when we're talking about who is the greatest, right? Because you can't talk about Champions League without talking about Madrid. So how is it every single year we're talking about the Prem as if they're going to be the focal point and the high bar that we set in the sport? It's not possible. Madrid is the bar, right? Everyone is trying to catch up to Madrid when it comes to the titles. So I don't believe we should be in a position that we're saying that we're too cocky when it comes to Prem teams, and we're almost glancing over the other teams. You know, PSG is another Ligue 1, is another league that we're saying is a farmers league. Yet PSG won the Champions League, and right now they just smacked Chelsea in an 8-2 aggregate. That is super embarrassing for Chelsea. And I'm a Chelsea fan. That's my club that I support. And I'm willing to tell you right now that was super embarrassing. And then you look at other clubs, Newcastle against Barcelona, 8-3 aggregate, another beatdown. You got Atletico against Spurs, 7-5 aggregate, another beatdown. And the first half, especially, which I'll go into in a second, but the first half was the first half of the first leg was a beatdown and disrespectful for the Spurs. And then you got other teams like City and Madrid. And City just didn't have it at all in any part of those 2 legs against Madrid. Now, I'm going to go in depth between those 3 games specifically because it's La Liga versus the Prem, just so we can get a good understanding of what we're looking at this year. And of course, every year things are different, right? Obviously, people are going to say in the comments, City has won in the last couple of years, you know, and Liverpool has won in the last couple of years over a lot of different La Liga teams. So why are we acting like that La Liga teams are better than the Prem? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying specifically Barcelona and Madrid are consistently better year after year than any of the other squads in the, or clubs rather, in the entire world. And that's just a fact, guys. That's just a fact. Now, let's start off with Atletico and Spurs, right? Now, in the first half of the first leg against them, it was so bad, right? Where the Spurs got bodied so bad that Romero had to go to his manager to tell him to take out Kinski, their goalie. Their keeper had to be subbed out because mentally he wasn't fit for the moment. He made a couple of mistakes very early and it cost them dearly. And on top of it, Atletico fans were making ham sandwiches at halftime. At halftime, they were making sandwiches, watching the game, just chilling, making sandwiches because they were that not worried about the Spurs. That's already a telling sign when it's not even Barca and Madrid from La Liga, and they are just mopping the floor with one of the top six that we consistently say is a threat in the world of football, right? Obviously, the Spurs aren't that big of a threat, and they're not the top of the Prem, but they're still a team that we usually, in a club that we usually all respect, right? Now, let's go over to Barca. Now, Barca had a hard game against Newcastle the first leg, and I actually called it. If you went to my shorts and on my TikTok, you would see that I went viral because a lot of Barca fans, specifically before the game, were pissed with my take. I had told them they had a list of injuries. They played La Liga teams pretty hard just a couple of games before going up against Newcastle's first leg, and it was going into Newcastle's home. It's a Prem team that is physically fit, and they have a lot of fitness. It wasn't going to be a good situation for Barca to go into. A lot of people attacked me in the comments, but I was just speaking from a pure analysis point. I wasn't hating on Barca. I was just letting you know that I thought it was going to be a hard game. And I was completely right. The score ended up being 1-1. And if we're being honest, even Barca fans can admit the 1-1 was pretty lucky. I mean, Lamine got the penalty last second with Olmo falling down last second. It was a penalty, but it wasn't like the Barca was playing well and almost felt like they didn't deserve to tie that game. It felt like it should have been Newcastle's win, which actually was good for Barca's point leading into the next game at Camp Nou. Now they were home. And I actually thought that Camp Nou would be a 3-0 victory. I thought it was going to be a spanking. I thought Newcastle wouldn't have any chances. But I was wrong when it came to the chances, but I was right in the fact that it was going to be a spanking. It ended up being 7-2. And this is where I think Barca have to be very careful moving on in the Champions League. I think if they don't tidy up their defense, it's not going to go well. They let 3 goals against Newcastle, and Newcastle's a good squad. Don't get me wrong. They're a good team. And also shout out Lewis Hall, just random little shout out. I thought he was phenomenal both legs. Just a little quick shout out. Lewis Hall, low key should be going to a better club next year or in the upcoming years because he's a good player. But whatever. That's what I'm saying. Barca has to be extremely careful with the defense because I get it. They're young and they were inexperienced a little bit because of their youth. And at the same time, their wing backs are both injured. So I understand those situations. But they let 2 goals, especially at Camp Nou. That was what I thought was shocking, especially in the first half. Alonga, which was a threat in the first leg, I thought they would tactically, tidy up their defense to make sure that Alonga was being, taken care of in Camp Nou in the second leg. They didn't take care of him at all. If anything, he played even better. He scored 2 goals before the half. And I thought that was incredible enough. That gave them a scare leading into the halftime. If it wasn't for that PK at half, things might not have gone as smoothly. I still think they were going to win. Don't get me wrong. I had the entire time I knew they were going to win to the point where I even placed a bet on them. Like I even placed a bet that Barca was going to win. So it wasn't like I was worried at all really. But at the same time, you don't want to see the fact that it's Newcastle scoring 2 at Camp Nou. You have to assume if you go up against Bayern, Madrid, Atletico, things are going to be bad going into the next, right? You're going to be in a situation where those teams are more organized. Those teams are more situated to defend against Barca. And if they're not ready to defend Newcastle, how can they defend the next coming up teams, right? Now, Barcelona's offense, when they're clicking, is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I knew Lamine was not going to get clamped up by Lewis Hall 2 games in a row. I knew that wasn't going to happen. So I was very, very confident he would be more creative. And he was, especially in Camp Nou. The boy does not miss an opportunity to celebrate. He did the Neymar celebration and he did the Ronaldo celebration. And fun little fact, he had the noodle hair He has that same color of hair that Ronaldo had back in the UCL. So you know my boy was locked in for that moment. And he played extremely well. And Rafinha, I knew he would play well as well because he had a hat-trick the weekend before against Sevilla. And Lamine also was a sub for that game as well. So Flick did a great job with his tactics, both giving the confidence to Rafinha to allow him to be the star of that game and get him that hat-trick. But at the same time, stop Lamine from his own misdoings. You know, as a player, right? I used to play myself. You never want to be on the bench. You always want to play, no matter how tired, no matter how stressed, no matter how injured. If you can get on that field, you want to play. Now, Lamine was a little sick over that week on the weekend, and Hansi felt, you know, what's the point starting him right now? Let's put him on the bench, put him in around the 70th minute. Let's make sure he has fresh legs for Newcastle and he's ready to go. And that was the perfect thing that Flick could have done leading into that game. So I was very impressed with Flick and Hansi overall. So I thought that was a great idea and great tactics on his end. Barca looked super clean offensively, but if they don't clean up their act defensively, it might be an issue leading into the next games. Now, let's go over to Man City and Madrid. Now, I watched City and Madrid both legs, and City, I think, have a problem. Systematically, Haaland will ghost if his team is not playing well. Now, I'm not saying it's necessarily Haaland's fault, but something's got to get figured out there. You know, I really think players like Bernardo Silva are heavily underrated, especially on City's team. That squad doesn't go as far without center mids feeding and moving that ball the way they're supposed to get it to Haaland. If you notice, Haaland is not that type of player like a Lamine, like an Mbappe, that can make their own from nothing. What I mean by that is he's not a skilled dribbler. He's not going to take on defenders in that way. His role is to make movements in and out of the box as a box player and receive those balls inside the box, right? He's going to get those tap-ins, those headers, those ugly type goals. But again, I'm not hating and I'm not talking bad about Haaland at all. I'm just simply explaining the type of player he is. With that being said, he needs his team around him. You know, Lamine, right? Or someone like Mbappe, even if the team is necessarily not having a good day, they can, in a moment's notice, figure it out and get a goal, right? And the same could be said for Haaland, but I think he needs that fluidity of the game to be centered around his team playing well a lot more than those two that I'm talking about. And I'm really only mentioning those three because we, you know, for the most part, we talk about those three as being the greatest right now in the world currently. So yeah, City, I think, had an issue against Madrid. Madrid was ready, man. Valverde, the first leg was unstoppable. And Valverde right now has been a true leader for the squad. In the last couple of weeks, he's been killing it, man. And with all the different injuries that Madrid has had, you know, you expect them to pop off always in the UCL. But the fact that he played so well for them just shows what a good captain he is and what a good leader he is, because when the team needed someone the most, he was ready to step up and be that player. Mbappe not being there, you would assume Vinny would be the person to go up and make that like leap and, you know, score goals and be the leader of the group and the leader of the offense. But Valverde went crazy for them that first leg of the round of 16. Vinny kind of ghosted, in my opinion, the first leg. Although he helped set up that second goal for Valverde, I think he was a little bit of a ghost. Now, the second leg, though, he played much better. But in my opinion, I don't think it's as impressive that he played better because there was more of a freedom. The fact that they were up 3-0 in the aggregate, the fact that they got a red card the second leg, I don't think Vinny really showed too much. It didn't impress me personally that much because, like I just said, I mean, they had a red card. They were going to play counterattack style football anyways because they know that City had to push if they wanted to make any sort of, you know, remontada. So Vinny, even though he played a lot better the second leg, it still didn't impress me. I would have much rather have seen him play better in the first leg because that would have shown true leadership to me at least. But nonetheless, they still played well. They still played great. Madrid is going to go to the next round and they have a freaking hill to climb now against Bayern. That's a real competition. And I believe as long as the team can get fit, it's going to be hard. I don't want to say Madrid's going to lose because, again, you cannot count them out. And I definitely doubted them the first leg against City. But at the same time, Bayern is a different monster. You got to be careful with Bayern. They are very disciplined and they have a ton of talent as well. So this is going to be probably, to me personally, probably the game of, or the two legs of the Champions League so far, just because of how much of a giant Bayern and Madrid are. I can't wait for that one, especially. But going real quick back to City and Madrid, I think there's a new rivalry brewing. I mean, not that it's new because we've seen it a couple of times now over the years, but especially we're realizing now that they keep finding each other in the UCL, and things are getting heated between the two clubs. At the end of the game, right, you saw Pep. It went viral on my TikTok. So if you want to go look for it, if you want to see exactly what I'm talking about, go over to my TikTok. It's actually on my YouTube Shorts as well, but it has, not to brag or anything, but it has 1.1 million views right now on my TikTok. So you might want to go see it there because there's a lot of people debating in the comments. But you're going to see Pep go over to a lot of the Madrid players, and he's congratulating them. He's being a mature person, a mature manager. He's putting his head up high. He's giving them all the hand. He's saying, good job, good game. And Rudiger ends up going over to him. And again, we don't know what was said, but we're only reading body language. Rudiger was being a little rude. You could tell he threw off Pep. Pep went to go say congrats. Rudiger said something, kind of got in his face. Pep was kind of like, what the heck is going on? Like, what's happening? Arbeloa actually senses it and starts to notice that the dynamic is changing. People are starting to crowd between the two. And Arbeloa grabs Rudiger and he gestures over to someone to grab Rudiger and make sure he doesn't go back to Pep. And at the end of the exchange, you see Pep actually turn around and kind of give him a look like, okay, I see how you are. I see what's going on here. Like, bet, I feel you. We'll see you next time type of vibe, right? And then you see Trent actually at the end of the game as well, which is in the same video. If you want to go search it up again on my TikTok, Football Utopia. In the same video, I show that Trent was making fun of Doku. And what he was doing was mimicking his dribbling shimmies. A lot of times when Doku dribbles, he hits kind of like one of these like shimmies before he shifts his body weight very quickly. Trent was seen talking to a Madrid player and doing the same motions, basically mocking him and showing him that, like, I wasn't worried. And it was kind of funny that, like, you know, it's kind of ridiculous, your little movements. So there's a lot of beef between the two clubs right now. And especially when I was looking at my comment section, there's beef between the fan bases as well. They have true, genuine rivalry right now when it comes to City and Madrid, which I think is really special because we need that right now. Like right now, I feel like things are too nice and buttoned up. I like to see when clubs and rivals are heated and in exchanges like this because that's the true nature of the sport. You saw Donnarumma and Vinny. When Vinny was celebrating his goal that later got taken back, he ended up celebrating in front of the City fans because people forget City last year were making fun of Vinny for the ballon that Rodri ended up taking. And they were making fun of him during the game. So Vinny felt that since he scored against the second leg, it was his turn a year later to make fun of them. And he ended up, you know, celebrating in front of the fans and trolling them. Donnarumma did not like that. He was like, come on, man. You really got to do that in front of our fan base. Like, get the hell out of here, right? So overall, I believe this was a great round of 16. And it really shows what I was saying in the beginning, that Premier League teams, although they are the standard of the league itself, they don't have the peak year after year that I see other clubs do, like PSG, Bayern, Real Madrid, and Barcelona. Those four in particular. In reality, I really am talking about Bayern, Madrid, and Barca. But sometimes, especially as of late, PSG has been up there as well. Those four clubs dominate when it comes to the peak pinnacle of the sport, but the Prem is a nucleus of the sport where I believe it has the greatest competition year after year as a league, but just doesn't always have the peak team and the peak club when it comes to the situation, whatever it's UCL, the Prem itself, whatever the case is. I believe Madrid and Barca stand alone when it comes to that situation. Now, if you guys like this video, I would really appreciate, again, if you would subscribe, like, give me your take in the comments, what you think. Maybe if you guys want to give me some predictions for the next rounds of the UCL, what you think is going to happen. But yeah, I really appreciate it if you guys did because I love talking football, and I'm trying to make myself get a name in this side of the world when it comes to the sport. I really want to become someone that's big for this. So if you guys can please share that love and share that support, I would really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys for the quarterfinals.